Hello and welcome to the very 46th Everybody Dice podcast, where we're going to be talking about which is the prettiest board game in our opinions. I am Steve, and today I am joined by...
It's Daryl.
It's Ian.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
All three of us.
All three. The group. The gang's back.
Having an e-cuddle.
An e-cuddle.
The
Well,
guys.
yeah.
Snuggling
it's the
together.
It's the safest kind of cuddle at the moment. Probably the only kind of cuddle you should be having. Because, yeah, we're pretty close to entering another full lockdown.
Yep.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well done, nation. You done good. Man, oh god, that's probably just... Yeah, that could be taken any number of ways there.
No, that can we reiterate that the Everybody Dice podcast stand on how the nation is doing is please stop, go back to your homes and sit down.
Yes.
Play
please.
board games, for the love of God. For
Well,
goodness
play board
sake,
games
play
with
board
the
games. Board games.
In your own household, please.
Just please. We've given you the rule. We've given you the tools to play solo games, group games.
It's almost as if the entire country isn't listening to us.
Stop what you're doing and play some goddamn board games.
Oh my god, that's a brilliant t-shirt idea. Or better yet, we should get a mask. I know it's going to be really hard to fit all that on one mask, but we could do it.
Hang on, what? A mask? I was in COVID mask.
Yeah. With just stop what you're doing and play board games. It'd be really nice.
Don't know why I immediately went for like Friday the 13th style.
Halloween's done.
Yeah,
but I like the idea of it.
So I don't know whether you saw this, Daryl, or not, but I've now got a face mask that I did wear into work once with a Mexican wrestling
Yes, that was a really cool
mask
one.
on it.
Yes, that
and
one,
it
I
just
liked
says,
it.
"Don't be a rudo, wear a mask." Yeah, it's
Amazing.
really cool. Yeah, it's probably my favourite face mask.
My PPE for my last shift was a Mandalorian helmet, which I enjoyed
Yes,
quite
it
a lot.
was.
Just walking around and like in full Mandalorian armor, and people were like, and I just look at them like, yeah, that's right, you run. It's great. Just the context of that was Halloween. I don't just get to do that whenever I want.
Yeah, I don't know whether anyone in our store actually did anything like dress up for Halloween or anything like that. I wasn't in, so...
Yeah. You don't really dress up for Halloween anyway, do you?
I don't, but I think... I honestly think when you used to work in our store, you always used to be kind of like the instigator that wanted people to dress up and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
I think that's fair, because I've forced it the last 2 years at my store now as well, so...
Oh, okay. Good stuff. Anyway, shall I talk a bit about what's been going on with the website recently?
Hoo-wee, if you want to, Steve.
I will do that then. So the most recent video that went up, other than our Halloween special podcast, so this actually came just before that one. So by all means, please go onto our YouTube page and check out that if you haven't already. But also, you can check out our Ride the Rails unboxing. Just kind of like opening up the game and seeing what it looks like. And it's really appropriate for this one because it's a very pretty game. Is it the prettiest board game, though? You'll just have to stay on this podcast and find out later, won't you? Also, on our Facebook page, facebook.com/everybodydice, we are actually doing something at the moment where we're actually profiling a whole bunch of games. So we give you a bit of useful information as to the kind of people who would play this board game and enjoy it, how complex it is, and then we just kind of give a brief description of the game as well with a few pictures. So it's kind of more aimed at people who are new to the hobby. So it kind of gives you a good idea of what kind of games are out there. Is it going to be too complex for you? Whether you'll enjoy it or not? Pretty much as I just explained. And we do have another rather sad announcement as well. It looks like our Star Wars Twitch stream is probably not going to happen. Would you like to elaborate a bit more on this, Ian?
Yeah, a combination of personal things for certain players and all sorts of things getting in the way. It's just, as a mix, it doesn't look like it's going to be happening anytime soon. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen, and to clarify of the lust for it to happen, my DM is currently texting me saying, I'm watching Mandalorian and now I want to play the game. So it's probably going to happen. I just don't know whether it'll be a YouTube thing or a Twitch thing. Depends on who's got free time when. So
we've been talking a little bit, haven't we, about possible ways to do it, because it would be. We can't promise anything, but we would be nice to at least do maybe like a startup thing on Twitch. But I don't know whether that's really ever going to be possible.
Whether we do like the first episode on Twitch and then follow up with everything on YouTube, or the problem is I don't like the idea of doing a Twitch one and then not being able to follow a consistent theme so people can keep track of it.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm sure we'll figure something out down the road. I mean, work has been done on it. It's not like it never got started in the first place.
I mean,
I've seen your like templates and stuff like that ready for.
It's literally
like, how
ready
it
to
was
go.
going to look on Twitch. Yeah, but it's more. It's the age-old problem, isn't it? Of any like even playing an RPG at home, you have to find people that are going to be there and be able to play.
Usually it's finding the DM that's the problem.
Yeah,
we've got a DM and he's raring to go. He's been writing stories for it. The other day I checked in with him and he was like, "How do you feel about this?" And I was like, "Well, that sounds awesome. I'm excited for that." It might not happen though, because what if we go in the opposite direction? It's like, "Oh, I'll make it happen." It's like, okay.
Okay. So yeah, that's really what's been going on. Shall we talk a little bit about what we have been playing recently?
Who
Yes,
is Steve?
I believe so.
I'd absolutely
Yes.
love to. Let's
You
talk
might
about
even
that.
say it's time to kick off the section titled "What We're Playing." So yeah, let's kick things off by talking about Fort. Me and Daryl actually played this, and I believe you also played it with your girlfriend as well, with Helen.
I'm sure you were about to say dog. You were definitely
Why
about
not?
to say dog.
Yeah. You played it with Onyx.
Yeah, I mean, he plays a good game. I'm not gonna lie. I did play it with my girlfriend. Yeah.
I kind of forgot who you said you'd played it with, and I kind of took a bit of a stab in the
Honestly, I feel like if you'd have gone for dog, it would have been such a great stab at the dark.
I love it. It's just
I
he
don't know,
didn't play it with Helen. Who else does he even interact with? Oh,
Dog.
yeah, the dog. No one else.
Just the dog. Okay, right. So where do I begin?
I think you begin by talking about the artwork.
Yeah.
It's
So
immediately before you've even taken that shrink wrap off. I mean,
yeah. So basically, what happened was I was down at my local. We're dropping, aren't we? Names.
yeah, definitely.
I was down at Entoyment. All right, check it out. It's got a website.
Employment.co.uk.
It is beautiful. Anyway, I was in there and I was talking to the owner and I was just sort of browsing. I can't even remember what I went in there to get. Oh, I went to go and get some more Marvel cards for Marvel Champions because they had a new set out. And I was just like in the, and there was like he used to work at a supermarket, so he's very much aware of putting stuff up front in a kind of delightful display that will catch your eye. Anyway, so I'm walking through and I see it, and he was just like, "Hey, Darryl, have you seen this?" I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's called Fort." And I was like, "That looks really, really familiar." I was like, "Is that by the same people that have done Root?" He's like, and he flips it over and he's like, "Yeah, it is." So immediately you're struck by this artwork. I think it's like pastel colours, isn't it? It's really.
It's by a guy called Carl Ferrin.
Carl Ferrin, right? Okay.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's just really multicolored. It's got like loads of like bits and pieces. It's very loud, but in a really good way. So anyway, I sort of like he's a very decent salesman because I picked it up and bought it straight away. Okay, based
He knows
purely
us when we walk in. that
yes,
he can-
he does. I had this conversation with the guy on the till. I can't remember his name. I think it's. I can't remember his name. Anyway, yeah, he was like, he's not a good salesman. You're just a sucker. And at this point, I laughed and went, this man could sell me anything and I would buy it. All he's got to do is go, "Hey, Darryl, look at this." And Helen was with me at the time, and she went, "Jesus Christ." Like, because immediately it was just like, "Look at this, I'm buying it." And he was like, "Do you want World of Tanks?" I was like, "I think I'll hold off on World of Tanks just yet." Basically, yeah, I picked it up and I played it when I went back home. Really easy to pick up. Initially, seems a little bit. It's only like maybe 4 or 5 pages worth of like text to read and stuff like that, and pictures. Not a lot. Then there's sort of a glossary at the back, but essentially it played really, really smooth. Like it didn't have the similar kind of tutorial style that route does, where it kind of leads you in the first couple of rounds and then gets you going. This was very much sort of a couple of rounds in, you've already picked it all up and you're good to go. It's as a deck building game. The concept is
it's sort of a deck building game.
A card drafting game.
I would say
card drafting game.
I would probably say it's more card drafting because you're quite often losing your cards as well.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of a deck builder, you're building an engine. Basically.
True.
You're going to keep using the things. Whereas this, it's like
you're burning them quite
really
quickly.
Weird. It's like you have to use the cards that you want to keep. Because if you don't use them, it leaves it open for the other player to be able to take them.
Yeah, so
I know that sounds weird to someone who hasn't played this game and thinking, of course you want to play your best cards that you want. But I think the thing that's really ingenious about this is you could have 3 amazing cards in your hand that you want to keep in your deck, but you can only choose one to play on your turn. So once you've played that card, your other cards, the other 2 amazing cards that you had in your hand, become available for the other player to take, basically.
Yeah, so it's a kind of a weird system. So like Steve said, so the idea is you're just kids building.
I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I've never played anything like it, I don't think. But yeah, you're playing like a fort as a kid, and you choose a couple of kids, and then they have sort of whatever player you pick, you basically get to choose these 2 star cards. Star cards can't be taken from you as such because they always go in your discard pile if you don't use them, but you can intentionally trash them, which means put them back in the box. So play kind of works in a couple of series of rounds. You can do a public action or a private action or any combination of the both. The issue with the public action a lot of the times is you're trying to hold off the opposite player from trying to trigger an effect that you might have tried doing. So for instance, if you're trying to increase your fort level and you notice the other players have enough resources in order to create their fort up 1 more level, you're almost trying to kind of limit that because they can very quickly catch up. And there may be an issue later on where you don't have the resources and they do it and you can't do it. So it's, so you pay the cost with other cards. So each card has like a sort of various symbol on it. So there's like glue, blaster, water pistols, glue. There's like random crown ones. I can't remember what the other one is. There's like a book. There's all different like suits basically. And you pay them to sort of use them. So if you put down a card that says gain victory points times crowns, you can put down crowns to try and kind of get more victory points. So there's quite a number of things you can do in order to try and kind of bolster up points and also score. So one of the things we found was quite fun was, like you say, after you've sort of played your cards, your played cards, say it's 1, 2, or 3, however many you put 1 down, but obviously you can pay for others. Put them down in front of you. That is now the yard. Then it goes to like a drafting process where you can either blind take from the deck, take the 3 that are already placed out for you to be able to see in the.
Sorry, you only take 1 of 3.
Yeah. One. Well, okay, we're getting into more of that. 1 of 3, basically. Or the thing that I really like is, and Steve said a minute earlier ago, is you can take it from someone else's yard. So, again, like Steve was saying, if you're having these great cards, you're risking them being taken by someone else. There's multiples of most cards.
It happens every single game. You are going to lose cards that are
100%.
integral to your engine. It's going to happen. Because there are going to be times where you have to choose between 2 or 3 cards that are integral to the way you were intended to play, and the other person can just easily see that and just go, yep, I will take that from you, and basically throw a spanner in the works. It's brilliant. I've never seen something like that in another game before. It probably is used out there, but I've never played a game with that before. It's really, really good.
It works really smooth as well, I find.
Sorry.
Go on. It works really smooth. I found it didn't break the game because the way it works is they go straight into your discard pile, and you might not necessarily get them until your hand needs to draw back up to like 5. So you might have to kind of shuffle them in, but there's no guarantee you'll get it there and then. So there's always this kind of random level of, although they're in there, they may not come to you at the right time, which is There's some really good
Yeah.
plays on it.
So, I mean, I'm actually going to draw comparisons here to Dead Man's Cabal.
Okay, yeah.
And it is simply that whole thing of what the game does really well. To basically, one of the most common problems with board games is analysis paralysis, where one player may be thinking about things too much for a long, long time, and it just brings the pace of the whole game down. If you have that in Fort or in Dead Man's Cabal, because you have these public actions as well, it lessens it a little bit. So you always know that even though you may be playing a 4-player game and you've got to get through 3 players' turns until it gets back to yours, and they may all be sat around thinking really hard about what they're going to do on their turn, you still know that there's a good chance you're still going to get to do something during their turn, which is great. It's a good way of being able to stifle that frustration, basically.
Yeah, there's some interesting concepts as well. Like when you get to a certain level on your fort, you choose a perk card, which is something that you can sort of eventually use against someone else. So, like a lot of times, it will give you extra victory points. There's the made-up rule, which I love. Made-up rule again gives you some sort of ability that again you don't have to show anyone. One of them you do have to show, but the made-up rule you don't have to. And essentially, at the end, it can be game-changing at the end because it can be a matter of points that really, really count. So, for instance, one of them which I really like was gain victory points times all the cards in your lookout. So you have a lookout where essentially, again, all the stuff you have to do is triggered by card action, so it's none of it you can just do, essentially. The concept of the lookout is the cards go in there, they never come back out again, but the symbol on them can be used. So when you're paying for a trigger, like victory points times blah blah blah, you can use the cards in your hand and stuff in the lookout, and the lookout obviously doesn't get burnt, so you can just always kind of... It's very clever practice.
It adds a bit of randomness to it as well, that it's part of board gaming, basically, because I seem to remember in the game that me and you played, I got one that was particularly hard to do.
Yes.
I had to have... I got bonus points for any remaining pizza that I had at the end of the game, and the problem is you have to spend at least 4 pizza to build your last fort to basically end the game. So if you're intending on finishing the game by finishing off the fort, you have to spend 4 of your pizza. And I think, what's the most pizza you can actually hold at any one time? You've obviously got your
5. You can have
5 that
in
you
the
can hold
main
in your pack. And then in your supply, it depends on your current fort level.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that... So your pack itself allows you to only have 5 as a max, but then your stuff, isn't it? It's called stuff. You can have that plus 1 of your fort level. So at 0, you obviously can have 1, and then so far and so far.
Yeah. What was the maximum fort level? It was 5, wasn't
5, it? But once you trigger 5, it gets the macaroni sculpture. This sounds mental, this game, by the way. It gets the macaroni sculpture, which gives you a plus 4 points, and also the next round will trigger the end. So, but
in theory, then the most pizza you could ever be holding is 11.
Yeah,
and you have to pay at least 4 in order to build your last fort, and that's if you have the -1 to it.
Yeah, so there's some really interesting... there's just so much going on. There's so many different things on the cards. Steve just mentioned then the -1 to points cost... the -1 to resource cost. So it's pizza and toys, basically, blue and orange.
Yes.
And with that, you can really, really help it. But the problem is, those cards are the ones that a lot of people kind of really want to keep, because they trigger that effect of being 1 less really helps, because it means if Steve wants to get the bonus points, he's always got maybe 1 extra pizza or 1 extra toy left for the next couple of rounds to try and pay for other stuff. There's just so much to it. There's so many weird ones. There's one where there's quite a brutal one, actually. There's one where you trash your own card. So some cards have really good powers, but they are literally a one-time use, usually a private action, and then essentially that card disappears into the deck, into the box, never to be used again for that game anyway. But there's some which you can destroy someone else's cards. And that really becomes brutal when you know they're setting themselves up to build a fort and you destroy a fort card at some point to try and limit what they can do. So you can somewhat control some actions, but it's very much kind of, again, luck of the draw. But I found with the game, I think I played with Helen and you, one of the different ones, it's not always about building the fort that wins you the points, because the fort gives you 25 points, right? But then there's all this pre-play where you're gaining victory points through other things sometimes with the card actions. So you can already get... So this is what happened with Helen. Helen got a head start of about 19. So because she kept playing the victory point ones times her fort level times something else, and then whatever his ability was, she already got like a head start of 19. So she was in a 19 position before she'd even got to... So I done the fort, got the 25. She got the fort because it plays one more round of the last couple of people's. She then also built her fort up, so she got the 25. I got the macaroni, which is 4. I got bonuses for having pizza and bits in my stuff, but it still wasn't anywhere near because of that initial 19 points she had. She really kind of, so there is options to kind of not necessarily neglect the fort building, but building up victory points to start off with, and then depending on what special abilities you have or special made up rules and stuff like that, it works really, really well in your favour. And also, to be fair, she lucked out. She had the one where she could draw 2 cards from anywhere. So when she was drafting, she would draw 2 cards. So it gave her a good option to kind of steal a lot of mine and also control the amount of fort building cards she had. So it was very... Sometimes you just get that. You get the fortuitous, because it's randomised, you get the fortuitous powers that just bleed into kind of you being quite strong to start off with. But I think if I don't know. It's just... I love the game. It's so good.
I will say, just to finish this off here, that's kind of what played into our game, which we actually drew. We got the exact same amount of points. But
very good.
I very much knew that, because I had a lot of cards that allowed me to gain a lot of resources to be able to build my fort really, really quickly. And I knew that my bonus card that gave me bonus points at the end was not particularly great. So I kind of knew I had to close out the game as quickly as possible, and it actually ended up... If that had gone on one more round, he would have beaten me, I reckon.
Yeah, I'd love to play it with 4 people, because I think it's going to be a lot more... feisty with drawing cards from other people's areas and stuff like that, and also a lot more screwing over with the burning the cards and private actions, and seeing how many people play more public than private. And overall, I don't think... I mean, it's a small box. I think it comes out about 27, 28, 29 quid. I think it's perfect. It's lovely. It's perfect artwork. It's a
really good game.
Really easy to take and put up and put away. The little wooden pieces are nice. The characters, the kids' characters on them, they're just crazy looking. Like I say, pastel colours. Really nice artwork. Big bug eyes. Like, it's just, it's very good.
So, okay, we'll move on now from one game we've liked. I won't talk about too much... we'll try to steer away from opinions of this game quite so much. We'll talk more about how it plays and stuff like that. Simply because we've got a review of Ride the Rails coming up, hopefully very soon. We'll see how things go. But we did manage to get a game of this together. And if anything, the one thing I do want to say right now about this game is it is one of the most subtly mean games I think I've ever played.
Yeah.
Like, it's very cutthroat. So just to talk about it a little bit, it really feels like a natural progression from if you've been playing a lot of Ticket to Ride and are looking for another similar game about building tracks across country and stuff like that. This is kind of a natural progression, though it is very, very different from Ticket to Ride. Because in Ticket to Ride, you have preset tracks across the board. You are drawing cards to make sets, and then you are just building across the tracks that are already there based on what you've got. So the tracks are very much your own. However, in Ride the Rails, the difference is that what you're actually doing is buying shares in company that other people can buy shares in as well. And only once you've bought shares in a company can you start to build a track across a country, trying to make it link up as many stations as possible and go from one coast to the other over the course of the game. There are a number of passengers. Essentially, there's one passenger at every single station in the game, and those passengers can only move once between any two stations that are completely connected through track, and they can go through any number of different companies. The cool thing here, though, is that because you're buying shares with other people, it means that you can kind of profit off of other people's success. If you've been seeing one railroad has been getting used a lot, you can buy shares in it. You can buy a share in someone else's railroad and then deliberately sabotage it. So,
who would
I
do
believe
that?
did happen.
Yeah, who would do that?
So, okay,
What
story about this
evil
game.
person
Okay,
would do that?
story about this game. Ian won. We'll get that out the way right now.
Shocker!
His gallant victory where he led Helen to second place, despite the fact that he very obviously earlier in the game destroyed her chances of actually winning it by forking her track.
Can we just? He basically.
This is the thing that we all let slip, despite the fact that he was saying, "Oh, Helen, I've basically given you second place here." He's the one who blocked her from being able to win it.
She was very grateful.
No, the reason why she was right. The
believe it.
reason why she was grateful, not after the initial betrayal, but there was these dodgy deals going on. So I suggested that you guys were definitely Southern Rail because you all banded together at one point, and I was like Virgin Cross Country or whatever it was. You know, that one that had like it was like very few lines, but like
Wasn't it?
popped over.
It was because at the beginning, I think you were the only person that invested in the red company, and everyone else just invested in blue.
Yeah, which
if I remember correctly.
And then I also basically did like a really stupid railway, and you guys made like a really unique kind of circular line, and I was just like, and then it came back a little bit at the end because people started buying into red because it was one of the only crap ones left. But the reason why she was chuffed to get second place is because Ian promised her that she would definitely beat me. Right? not because of any other reason.
At
just
that point in the game, me and Steve were very far ahead, and you two were a little bit behind.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, if Helen starts putting shares in orange and starts building it into orange, they will get stronger.
Yeah.
So I needed someone to.
Didn't you like band together to do yellow? And you were like, look, if I join, I'll tell you what, I'll take
no,
shares in
so-
yellow.
There's one round in particular I was like, if you run your train through all of your territory, but at the end run it through all of the blue lines where I make more profit than anybody else, I will buy a share in your company, and I will start spreading yellow so we can get across the map quicker.
And then you immediately forked the track so that it wouldn't be one long thing.
But the thing is, what I was actually doing is connecting more trains to the track so I could run them all through blue. That's what the actual plan was. But at the same time, it was beneficial.
It did destroy any hope, though, of her winning the game.
It was still beneficial for her. It just wasn't as beneficial as if I'd gone across the map in a way that was useful in any way.
It was just so funny.
So,
honestly.
hang on, that's just your way of saying, okay, it may have still been beneficial, but it wasn't beneficial in the most positive manner.
Yeah, it's like, if I'd not done it, I wouldn't have given her any money. If I had done it, I could have given her like a £5. If I'd done it across the map, like I think would have been probably better, it'd be like giving her £100.
It would be, yeah.
But, you know, you should be grateful for what you got. But hold tight that crisp £5 note that I gave you.
It was just funny that essentially still you are the person that cost her winning the game.
That is open for debate.
It got so ridiculous towards the end because everyone was buying up like rather than having just one or two shares, it was started getting to like 3 shares, nearly 4, and it was just you didn't want to use those tracks because you knew what was going to happen, and it was just trying not to. The blue one was the most. That was probably one of the bigger tracks, but the others had
I got 2 shares in blue very early.
You did, yeah.
Because we started with blue, we were all running things through blue very early, and I was making double money on all of you.
Yeah, which was really, really good. But it was just when it got to like 3 purple and 3 orange and 3 whatever, you just found yourself trying to avoid, because you wanted the most to get points, but you also didn't want to get other people points. Absolutely brutal.
I don't want to talk too much about opinions on this, because like I say, we'll follow this a little bit later, but definitely one of the more interesting things that you'll find out very, very quickly is the idea that although it at first feels very beneficial to be investing in a track with a load of other people because it means your track is being built a lot faster, you also very quickly realise that because it's being built faster, it will run out faster at the same time. And because everyone's moving those passengers around very early, it means that resource is being burnt for later. So essentially, a line, after a while, can become useless if too many people are too invested in it.
I think what was so good about the blue track when we did do it was the way it had been set up is it went all the way down the coast and connected a bunch of passengers to the line.
It did,
and stuff all went through all of the blue in order to get to every other track.
Yeah.
Which is why it was so good. It wasn't like you could go a different direction. You had to use it.
But you've got to admit, your victory would have been even greater if people had carried on using the blue track, because people such as me stopped using the blue track. Like,
everyone stopped using the blue track except for Helen. That's because I
brokered a deal. You brokered a deal.
Yeah.
So my favourite bit was one of the like dirty little tactics you used was what was it you said to her? You said something and you gave this speech, right? No, look, I'm just saying that honestly, do what you want to do, but it would benefit you more to do this.
At one point, right, I said so. I was like, oh, if you do this, I'll do this. And then you guys were like, don't do this, you should do this, you should do this. I went, are you going to let those two men in your boardroom talk to you like that? As the only woman in charge of these companies, we're equal shareholders in this, me and you. You're a woman boardroom, I'm a man boardroom, that doesn't make a difference. Me and you should do what's right for us. And you should do what's right for you, which includes going through blue, because you will make more money from that. And you two are like, no, even make twice as much money from that.
She goes to do it.
For someone, sorry, can I just say a second? For someone who stated at the beginning of this game how much they hate politicians, that was the most politician-y thing I think I've ever heard someone say in a board.
But he goes on
All I'm
to
saying
then
is
turn
that
around.
it's not impossible to hate yourself.
You turned round after she'd started doing it. She goes, yeah, you're right, I should do this. And then that way it'll do this. And then you turn around and went, I think I got away with that. And it was just like, how is someone not... Like, I get he's giving a good talk, but he just literally turned around and went, I think I got away with that. Such a fucking... Oh.
I think the one thing I will say, because we've already mentioned it in here, I think we all had a really good time with Riding Rails,
it didn't matter who won. It was just a really good fun game.
I can definitely see.
It did matter
how
who came second,
people
though.
will not like this game. I can 100% see, because it is very, very cutthroat, and people will be screwing one another over all the time. And
do you know what the best bit about that is that I convinced Helen that as part of me screwing her over, that was beneficial to her.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but it was beneficial to her because she was screwing me over. Like, that was the best part.
It didn't matter who came first in that game, just who beat Daryl.
Yeah, and as long as it was her.
Ian just knows how to appeal to Helen, basically.
Screw me over, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Helen has been with Daryl for a long time, and I know that what it must have meant to her to have him more angry than she was.
Okay. Oh. Let's move on then. We've got one more... Well, actually, no, sorry. We've got two more games to talk about. There's something I really briefly want to talk about at the end of this. 5 Minute Mystery. Me and Daryl played this. Man, this is... You're immediately going to be drawn to the toy in the centre of the table in this game.
How dare you say toy? It is a scientific device.
Okay, so we've talked about 5 Minute Dungeon.
Yes, 5 Minute Dungeon is the same company. They've done a couple of games now, actually.
Yeah, it's still a variation on that system, though, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. The only thing I would say is this is a lot more like a kind of, I don't know, like Guess Who kind of style kind of game, but like a much more updated fun version. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. So, premise again, not always 5 minutes. So disclaimer, not always 5 minutes. Sometimes 3, sometimes 9, depending on how it is. Basically, you're working for a walrus that I would say is very bad at keeping items where they should be. So there's a weird little...
I'm interested.
There's a weird little story-based kind of narrative. You need an app to play it. Well, actually, necessarily you don't need an app to play it, but the app kind of ties it up a little bit. Basically, he'll explain a little bit about what's happened, but it is on the card. And he goes, "Oh dear, I seem to have misplaced my MacGuffin." He's always misplacing MacGuffins. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Is it Kevin?
It's Kevin the Walrus. Yeah. Anyway, so what happens then is you just randomly pick a culprit. Okay. So every time it always changes, and then the culprit. The way you kind of discover who it is this decoder and the cards in the middle. So the cards are scenes throughout the museum, okay? And essentially what you're looking for is hidden symbols. It's not like... I would say it's not always difficult to spot them, but there have been times where we both went... Because some of them are very hard to find, in a way.
So, if there was a criticism that I was going to label it this game... It was those games where we would spend literally like 2 minutes of, say, our 6-minute game staring at one card.
Because we're trying to find a circle or something.
Yeah, and none of us can spot it. That's one thing that I would say is a little bit frustrating sometimes about this game.
Yeah, I personally think it's not such a bad thing because it would mean... Like I said, I wouldn't want it too easy. I want it to be a little bit more, and it does create tension, which is nice because I like the fact we're both going, "Oh Jesus, I've got everything, but where's the circle? Where the hell's the circle?" And then afterwards we go, it was on the floor in a puddle," and you're like, it's so obvious now. So a couple of cards, there's the same card, but it's changed the position and different objects inside the thing. So you can sort of memorize it, but there's not much point because you spin through them so quickly, you're not going to always keep an eye on it. So once you find the right one, you flip it over, and it should match up with what you have put on the decoder. Okay, cool. So then that lets you pick a clue. The clue, you get to choose between 4 different colours. And that clue basically has to match up with the back of the culprit tile has almost like a kind of coloured barcode on 4 corners, so like a green, purple, blue and red, and basically these barcodes have to match up with the clue tiles. If they match up, you then go through your hand of suspects and can kind of narrow it down a little bit better. So there's some really interesting things where it's like they have a scarf. Okay, so you go through and you're like, okay, so these guys haven't got scarves, right? Bin them out, and it's a very good teamwork game. Because you're forever going, okay, I've narrowed it down to 4 people. Okay, all right, okay, you do the decoder. So there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of element of kind of teamwork, getting people involved. It's really good. So once you've done a couple of them, it sort of suggests you do like a handful of different ones you can choose. Some of them are really interesting. It's not always just trying to find a culprit. It's just trying to find items. Or there's a really interesting one I played before. I don't think we played it, but I played it with Helen, where your suspect deck is locked, so the first suspect is the only one you can see, and then if the clues don't add up, you don't get rid of that suspect. So basically you've got to try and kind of work your way through the deck rather than having them fanned out in front of you and picking them as you go. So there's a lot of modes in it that kind of add to the kind of tension, if you will. But again, it's a really good game, like really fun, really simple. There's not a lot to kind of teach people. I happened to get the Kickstarter edition. I got the extra cards and extra culprits because I just wanted a bit more. The missions on that are a lot harder as well. It's Mastermind, I think it's the mode you can play after you've got through it. I think it's the same as Mystery Dungeon. There was like an extra mode to it, which was like a lot harder. But we played like how many? Like 6 missions in total, I think.
Yeah, we played an awful lot because it gets quite addictive.
It does, yeah.
I would say like I found I was enjoying the game a hell of a lot more when there were 2 suspects and you were having to very much keep track of what was on each of them, because honestly, it's so hard to get yourself twisted in knots in this game, and that's kind of what's fun about it, if I'm honest with you. So if say you find out that both your culprits have an umbrella, for example, but then one has fur and the other has scales, and all of a sudden then anything else that we find out about them, we have to remember, is it the one with fur and the umbrella that has the rose as well, or is it the one with the scale? And all of a sudden you really start tying yourself in knots, and that's kind of fun, just to go down that rabbit hole and really just like it becomes a real game of memory and stuff like that, because not only like it would be easy to sit down and analyze and work out, well, they have this and they have all these elements to them, but when you're against a clock and it becomes very frantic, it's very easy to start getting muddled up and wrong about certain things. It makes it all the more satisfying when it actually turns out that you are right. I think did we fail 1 or 2 out of the 6 or 7 that we did?
The way it works is once the timer's done, it gives you a last stab in the dark kind of thing. A couple of times we managed to do it, where we just went, I think it's this one, and it worked. There was maybe 2 or maybe 3 at a push, where we just were so... Like, you had 2, I had 2, and we worked out that one of them had to be one of the characters, but...
Yeah.
It was just, it was, when you're like, oh god, I honestly don't know at this point. And you're like, right, okay.
I think that's it. You end up with like multiple piles of people who it could be, because some of the cards that you have in your hand will relate to one of the culprits, but not to the other. And then you might have another one, then you have to remember which pile you actually have to put it in and stuff like that. It's just wonderfully chaotic like that. And to be honest, although I've picked out a couple of negatives I found about it, I still enjoyed this far more than any kind of like... But there are little criticisms here and there about this one, but thoroughly enjoyed it still.
Yeah. Worth a check out.
Okay.
The only thing I would say is, sorry, I don't know if they genuinely are in retail or not, these games. I've not actually ever seen them. I know
I've
Zatu...
never seen them in retail either.
I think Zatu had them, but I don't think... I've seen them in just
fairness,
general shops.
There are some of the online retailers that actually... you'll probably notice whenever you go onto a Kickstarter game, you have a retailers
Pledge
section
or whatever,
that they can do in, and I know Zatu definitely subscribe to a lot of those.
Yeah, because they tend to have also just the Kickstarter versions for sale. So
100%. Like you will find before the actual game is released to proper retail, websites like Zatu will already have Kickstarter versions available as soon as people are actually receiving their Kickstarter versions. I think that happened to me with Oceans,
okay,
I think,
yeah.
which I think was actually only released a few weeks ago in the UK, but I managed to get hold of a copy of it because a website was selling a Kickstarter edition of it. So yeah, I've ended up with a Kickstarter edition without ever backing it.
Kickstarter, yeah. It's a weird system, isn't it? Because you use it to back, but then, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, on.
And I'll finish off what we've been playing with something I haven't been playing, but I kind of want to talk about it because God knows when I'm ever going to get a chance to play this. It's because it's a party game that involves a lot of players, and that is Mafia de Cuba. My version is completely in French, so having fun deciphering that. The rules are really simple for this game, though. You actually play it with the box. So what you actually get when you get this game is you get a box, you get a number of... Actually, let's see if you can guess what these are. Hang on a second. Let me hold this close to my mic.
Is it dominoes?
No.
Not dominoes.
Can you do it again?
Yeah. It is a real satisfying sound.
The hell?
Poker chips?
No. Poker chips. There you go.
It sounds like
Really?
the nice big ones from the secret game, whatever it's called.
Yeah, pretty much. These are... I'm assuming they must have a bit of clay in them or something like that, because they have that weight that poker chips do. So yeah, you've got a number of poker chips, all with a number of rolls on. You also have 15 diamonds. Not real diamonds. That would be horrendously expensive.
Steve spent a lot of money on this game.
And essentially, these are kept in the box. And one person plays the role of mafia boss. Depending on how many people are playing this game, I think it can play up to 12 players, I think, or something like that. The idea is that at the beginning of the game, the mafia boss removes between 0 and 5 of the 15 crystals that are in the box out and puts them in their pocket without showing anyone else how many they took out. So if they took out 0, they still have to pretend that they've taken something out, basically. The player to the left of the mafia boss, so this does involve seating, takes a felt bag. That'll be important in a second. And the mafia boss has 2 bottles of, I guess they're whiskey of some sort, or maybe tequila, I don't know. they will be used as apologies throughout the game. Essentially, kind of like lives. Then, what's interesting about this game is the Mafia boss will then pass the game box with all those other elements inside to the person on their left. They then must take out at least one thing from the box. They can either take out one of the poker chips, which represents a roll around the table. It might be that you're a loyal henchman, which means that if you take that chip, you win if the Mafia boss wins. You could be a cleaner. Actually, I'll explain the cleaner in a second, because you have FBI agents. There are 2 of those in the box. If you're an FBI agent, if the Mafia boss accuses you of taking something out the box that you didn't take, the FBI agent alone wins. But there is a cleaner role. If the cleaner suspects someone else of being an FBI agent, when the Mafia boss goes to accuse them, he can just go pow, and that means he's killed the agent. If it is the agent, it means the cleaner wins. If it's not, it means both the cleaner and the FBI agent are out of the game. You also have a driver. The driver wins if the person seated to the right of them wins. And then you have the diamonds. So someone can take any number of diamonds out of the box. And when the box comes back to the Mafia box, he looks inside and makes note of how many diamonds have been stolen, bearing in mind that he might have removed some at the beginning of the game. It is then up to the Mafia boss to start asking questions around the table to determine who took diamonds. So he could ask things like, oh, what did you take out of the box? Or, when you received the box, how many diamonds were there in the box? Or, what rolls were still left in the box? So in other words, they'll start giving information out around the table. And bear in mind that the loyal henchmen want to help the Mafia boss. So people around the table will naturally start accusing people and trying to sway the Mafia boss into changing their mind perhaps about stuff, or accusing someone else around the table to try and get the Mafia boss to say, hand over your diamonds. And you can't lie about it. If you get told to give your diamonds back to the Mafia boss, you have to either give your diamonds back or say, no, I haven't got any. And you have to be truthful about that. The idea is the Mafia boss has to end the game with all his diamonds back in the box. So there's so much information that can be available to people in this game. It's worth noting that the person to the left of the Mafia boss that gets given the velvet bag, they can remove one of the rolls out of the box, place it in the velvet bag, essentially taking it out of the game, and then take an additional thing from the box. This sounds amazing. It's one of these games that I've heard a hell of a lot of people talking about, but
is it bad that I've already got plays running through my head?
No, not.
I'm already thinking, yeah, I could do this and I could do this.
Oh, there's a million ways that you can play this game, which is what's kind of cool about it. And the thing is, as well, is the only information you initially have is what you've seen on the box when it's come round to you to take something out of it. So you know whether the people to the right of you have lied or not. And essentially that is what you have to start playing off of and start kind of like deciding where the roles lie in the game. Essentially the hardest role to play in this game is going to be the Mafia boss. Because people are going to be lying to you left, right and centre, and you have to determine who's telling the truth and who isn't. Because the Mafia boss isn't going to have any information until he gets the box back. All he knows is what's actually been taken out of the box, because he knows how many diamonds he took out in the first place. He doesn't know. He doesn't even know whether the person to the left of them took out a roll. Essentially, they could have faked putting something in the velvet bag. So yeah, this one sounds like a hell of a lot of fun. It's a shame because I cannot wait to play it. And it's probably going to be a long time until we are actually able to get people round to actually give it a bit of a go. Getting a good amount of people to play it is going to be even harder, I feel. But yeah, that's Mafia de Cuba. I thought it was just a real interesting game because you actually have to play with the game box, which, by the way, has a little magnetised lid to it as well. That's quite nice. Which is really cool. So yeah, very cool. Really didn't need the English rules for it. It's it's a simple enough game.
I was going to say
as it
there's
is.
no cards that it's all like multilingual or whatever.
It's essentially the only thing I'm going to need the rules for is to set up which parts actually get played into the box, because you take out certain roles depending on how many people are playing. So yeah. One last thing that I didn't mention that is worth noting as well is that the last player who hands the box back to the Mafia boss is the only player around the table that is allowed to take nothing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There is also a rule that if there is nothing in the box left to take, then you become a street urchin. So if you're a street urchin, in other words, you didn't take anything out the box, so the person to the right, if they didn't take anything, becomes a street urchin as well. Your role is you win if one of the thieves win. But it's also worth noting that the thieves do not win together. Only the thief with the highest amount of diamonds that they took actually wins. So if someone took 3 diamonds and then someone took 7 or something like that, then the person with 7 would win, providing they didn't get caught. So that's kind of cool, because it also adds an element of push your luck to this, because the more diamonds you take, the more obvious it is that you took diamonds, because there's going to be someone around the table that is going to say, well, it got to me and there were no diamonds left in there. And at that point, you know that there's a certain section of the table where that's probably come from. Because that person technically can't lie about there being no diamonds left either, because the next person will say, oh, there were diamonds in it when it got to me. So, yeah, I suppose there's a lot of ways you could quite easily play this. But yeah, it's interesting. Real interesting game. One of these ones that's a real nice evolution on games like Secrets or One Night Werewolf, where it's definitely along those kind of lines, but this one sounds really cool. Okay, so that is everything we've been playing. How about we talk about a bit of news?
Oh, a little bit of news.
Okay.
Little news.
A little bit of news.
Little news.
Little news.
And the first thing on our news agenda here is Descent. We talked a little bit before about Descent game being announced, I think. I think we mentioned it on another podcast, but they've actually revealed what it was now. This is not a sequel. It is not an expansion. It is its own thing. So it's called Descent Legends of the Dark. And boy, is this a big box. So this is the third Descent game, because you had Descent Journeys in the Dark, you had Descent Journeys in the Dark 2nd Edition, and now you have Descent Legends of the Dark. This one retails at almost $180, or it will do, which is insane. And it kind of shows just how far inflation has affected board games, basically. Because you could argue that this is a miniatures-heavy game. The original was a miniatures-heavy game. The only thing that it looks like that you're really getting extra over the original version here is they have actually done kind of almost like laser-cut cardboard scenery that kind of folds down into 3D scenery. If any of you have seen... Oh, God, what was the name of it? There is... Oh God, there's that game that the people that make all the board game scenery released, and I cannot remember the name of it now.
The
one
TT
where
games.
It's the one when you're playing basically bounty hunters. Core Space. It only took looking in my cupboard to figure that out.
I heard the noise. I was like, oh.
So yeah, Core Space, this is very much along the same sort of lines as that. That provided you with a lot of cardboard scenery with it, although it's far closer to being a board game than a miniatures game. Like I said, it had all this really neat kind of cardboard scenery that was cut in such a way that you were able to fold it over and stuff like that, so you could make kind of rounded treasure chests and stuff like that, which it looks like they've done for this version of Descent as well. So really, that's the thing that looks like is extra in this game, and that has warranted it to more than double in price.
It's crazy, isn't it?
So yeah, how do you guys feel about that? Like, considering this has gone from roughly a £70 game to pretty much adding over 100 onto that price tag.
I don't know. Because I think they still had a few of them in Toyman, actually, because it was always towards the side of Imperial Assault, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know. It always looked interesting, but I feel like 100 odd quid for a game.
I do wonder whether you're getting your money's worth.
Yeah, I
Whether
mean,
you're getting enough stuff to justify the 100 quid.
I mean,
Or over 100 quid.
it's kind of like where you're getting your money's worth before, is what it is. Like, how do you compare then to now? Because I will say, have either of you gotten far enough down the page to see that hybrid Centurion?
No.
Because that is a very large looking figure. That is the one thing I will say here.
Begins frantically scrolling.
Yeah. So, one thing I will mention about this is it has 100% expanded on even Imperial Assault, because Imperial Assault was very much seen as the next step in Descent. They brought in a lot of the app-driven roles.
Oh, wow, yeah, there it is. I scrolled past it in my frantic search for it. That's cool as hell.
Yes, so there is obviously a big centerpiece figure in this game. Is it worth having that in order to drive up the price so much? It is a really cool looking figure.
How many minis do you get then?
So,
Total minis.
it looks like you're roughly getting, 4, 8, 10, 14, 17, 18, 26, 30, 34. It looks like you're getting roughly 35 to 40 figures in this, which, if I'm going to be honest with you, is probably roughly the same as what you get in Descent. And bear in mind, you did get some larger minis in Descent as well. Maybe not on that scale. Maybe I don't think they look as if they were quite as well produced as they are in this game. I will admit that. But where do you stop with this stuff?
Where's the cost justified? Have they said?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like there's enough more.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of like my concern here. Like, I'm perfectly happy with my copy of Descent 2nd Edition. It's a really good game. Yeah, it's a bit outdated now. But the amount of stuff you get in there is still significant, you know. You still get an awful lot of map tile pieces to play around with and stuff.
Is that what it is then? Because if you're happy with your current copy of Descent,
yeah,
is the price tag a fan fee?
Well,
this is what you have to pay
thing.
if you're a big fan of this game and you'd like this edition.
That's how a lot of places try to sell. A lot of things try to sell themselves on, but I find I'm very much the opposite of that, because I'm happy with my Descent Journeys in the Dark 2nd Edition game. I'm kind of like thinking, well, what's the point in shelling out £180 for this game? Because there is still an awful lot of content in Descent Journeys in the Dark that I haven't seen yet. So
this is kind of similar to the whole Hero Quest thing, where it's like that was obviously getting a re-release, and the price of it compared to what it was, kind of thing. Or
yeah, I mean the Hero Quest thing is fairly obvious. It's out of print, right?
Yeah,
so is Descent out of print?
The nostalgia.
I think most of it's
nostalgia for. I will say the nostalgia for Descent is nowhere near the same sort of level as the nostalgia for Hero Quest.
For sure.
The amount of nostalgia for Hero Quest is unreal. And I think it's because it's been gone for so long.
What's the price difference? I can't remember how much the new Hero Quest was.
I thought it was quite pricey, wasn't it?
It was still quite a lot. Yeah, I think it was still, if you wanted the deluxe edition, I think it was still about $150. I think it was still less than this for the deluxe edition. I think there was a standard edition that was, I think it was roughly between $90 and $100, I think.
I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? That it's cheaper and it's more sought after.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people that are listening to this are probably going to think to themselves that we've gotten way too caught up on the price of this game. But I think it's something that's worth discussing.
I don't think it's a harsh comment to say that if the price tag of a game is so high that it's a shock, then it's justified to speak about it.
I think this is automatically going to put off casual gamers and people just starting to get into the hobby. I don't feel like this is a game they will check out simply because of the price.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because I can't remember, I've already asked this. I might have asked this a second ago. How much was the original Descent? Did you say it's 70?
It was roughly £70, I think. So I remember buying it at about the same time that I bought Zombicide.
So it's about 70,
and they were similar prices. Yeah,
get your calculators out, boys. We're about to work out the rate of inflation.
Well, may I just chime in?
Yeah.
It's still available. It's actually it's actually cheaper than it was, obviously.
What, than 70?
Well, yeah, obviously, because
how much is it
well,
now,
I mean,
then?
I'm looking at one now, second edition for 55, brand new. It's not. It's on a website as well. But what's really funny is, let me just get a screen grab of this. What's really interesting about this is in the background it has Descent Legends of the Dark. The box, the new one, up on... I mean, don't get me wrong, the box size is completely and utterly ridiculously different. I could understand if... are we under the assumption that Descent Legends of the Dark is like all of Descent or not?
This is its own thing.
Okay, so...
It doesn't include the original adventures or anything like that.
It's not going to be a case of, like... I could understand if it was, like, a box of all the stuff that's... Because a couple of the...
Every expansion.
Yeah, the expansions...
Saying,
the expansions are hitting up, like, 30, 40 quid. So I can imagine if you were to buy an entire box, it was all kind of set to fit in that box. It had a nice kind of storage system. Yeah, I would say that's fair because you're getting a huge package and stuff like that. But it's just... compared to the sort of... go on.
The thing that's really striking me about this game, though, the thing that looks like is a real step forward for Descent, is the app.
Okay,
it looks like, to be honest, from a lot of what I've read about this and from what you see in the screenshots from the app on this, it looks like it does a lot of really cool stuff with that. It's not just about setting up the game and making things easier for you, a bit like Mansions of Madness does. It kind of guides you through the story of it. It looks like you have the shop is like all set up in the app as well, which is really cool. Which again, it looks like there's a crafting system as well, which is all done through the app again. I mean, like I say, there's a lot of really cool things here, but
not worth.
The thing that's cool about it is the thing that arguably is not included in the game box.
Yeah, it's so funny because it seems like they've done with the oh Jesus, what was it called? Imperial Assault had a version when they brought out the app, didn't they? And then also the Fantasy Flight, the Middle's Earth one, also has an app that kind of handles with it and stuff as well. So, but again, like you say, that was the game itself. It just added an extra level to it. You can't play necessarily a couple of them without the app. But
okay.
So I'm curious now. Are we now we justifying the price with the app?
No.
If anything, I am arguing that the most interesting part of this is not included in the box.
Right, I see. Okay.
Which to me is,
as a very miniatures orientated guy, which I am. The models look really nice. Obviously, the pictures are they 3D renders or are they?
This is the thing. I'm not sure because a lot of the time on these things, this looks like a very rendered.
The way the light
campaign
hits it makes it look like a 3D render.
Yes, I don't know. I don't know that. It is getting harder to tell, but I think I'm leaning on the side of this being a 3D render.
Be interesting because if the miniature quality is really like expensive good, I wonder whether a lot of miniatures orientated people might be more keen to buy that because they like painting the miniatures and stuff.
Maybe, yeah. But it's also worth noting that if you are looking at getting into Descent, they release hundreds of expansions for these things, not just boxed expansions, things like that. Individual miniatures get released as well. to add into the game. But at the same time, this isn't a miniatures game. This is a board game at the same time. And it's...
Yeah, I mean, at what point does it become a miniatures game when the miniatures are such high quality? I guess it's probably the way the game plays rather than the number of miniatures involved. But, I mean, if the miniatures become a defining aspect of the board game...
But it's just interesting because I haven't seen a lot of negative press for this game. And I think I was almost expecting some.
But because of the price tag?
Interesting. Or... Yeah, I think because of the price tag, because like Daryl said, if you can pick up Descent Journeys in the Dark 2nd Edition for 55 quid...
Just as a base game. It's a base game without any of the extra stuff. But, I mean, I'd be happy to pay £55 for a story-driven game.
Yeah, and like I said, I've nowhere near seen all the content in Descent Journeys in the Dark. So it is worth noting that it does play differently because this one does cut out the Dungeon Master role as well. That's pretty much taken by the app. So Descent was a one versus all game. This is a cooperative game. So there is that to bear in mind as well.
That does change a lot. I wonder how... So I assume the app is free.
Yeah, it must be.
I
would assume
how well
so
would the app translate to the original copy of Descent? Probably not perfectly, but could you ham-fist it together in a way that you get the best of that experience?
Well, they did it with Imperial Assault, didn't they?
Yeah. So what's stopping you from having the old Descent and then using the app where you need to as your DM?
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, there's obviously going to be compatibility issues between the two.
Sure, but I wonder how whether they're just little things that you can overcome or whether it's...
I think
they make it so you've got to scan bottom of models or cards or something.
I think judging by it, it's the tiles. It looks like where it tells you to put tiles down. I guess you'd have different tiles. But again, you could just make that up as it's not really... But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's enough about that. Let's... move into Seastead, which I will be completely honest with you. I read through this, found it really interesting. I've been at work all day and I've completely forgotten everything about it. So what I can remember is this is very much a seafaring game for 2 players. Of course, at the moment, I think we're all looking for games we can play in smaller numbers at the moment. Looks really cool. By the looks of it, you kind of have the settlement, so it's kind of like you've got a flooded world, and there's only a few settlements left, and I think you're vying for resources and control of these last settlements. It's actually based on another game that I haven't played called Flotilla, and just reading through this here, I'll read a little bit off it, seeing as I've kind of forgotten everything about this game all of a sudden. This is taken from Board Game Geek. They've written on here that Seastead is a 1 to 2 player game set in an ocean world in which players compete for control of 4 different flotillas. The game shares the same nautical post-apocalyptic world that WizKids introduced to us in 2019 with Flotilla. It does kind of say that while Flotilla is heavier and more complex, this one is equally as interesting. So like it mentions, the game's kind of based around 4 different flotillas. Essentially, you've got to be the best seasteader by basically conducting dives, and like I said, finding resources and building structures. What is interesting, though, as well, is you're also trying to clean up toxins that are polluting the water as well. So I can imagine there's probably a bit of kind of working together in a kind of like semi-cooperative way to kind of open up routes for you to be able to dive into new areas and stuff, whereas they were polluted before. Looks really interesting. Again, this is a competitive game. I'll probably post the link to this actually in the description down below. It's just one of those games that I just kind of saw and just thought it looked really, really interesting. And it looks as if you can currently play it on Tabletop Simulator. if any of you out there are interested at all. What do you guys think of the look of this game generally? Having just looked at it very briefly.
Obviously, I'm not looking at it in super depth.
Mm.
I like the look of it though; it's very pretty. I like the board.
Yeah, that is kind of cool. I actually don't think that's necessarily the board. I think that might be something that they've superimposed onto Tabletop Simulator. I think what you literally have is the 4 tiles that are in the center of the board, and then you have kind of like your own player board with your various resources that you have at your disposal.
I see now under closer inspection it says TTS mod.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of cool.
I mean, I kind of like the look of this one. It's very much like a settlement building kind of game. You're obviously competing for it. Yeah, looks cool. Check it out. I will post links to the Board Game Geek article in the comments down below. The last thing we've got to talk about here on the news is Arkham Horror is getting a video game. But it's not a video game of any of the board games, although it seems to be loosely based on Mansions of Madness. But this is not like a game of Mansions of Madness. This is a proper video game based on board game, which, to be honest, I think this might be the first one of its kind. I can't really think of another one quite like it.
No, well,
squad-based narrative adventure game.
It was supposed to be
RPG combat phases.
It was supposed to be Mansions of Madness originally, wasn't it? So it was Mansions of Madness video game adaptation.
Yeah.
And now they've changed it to kind of fit in as a general. I don't know. I feel like it could be like. I'm trying to think anything's been digital, like a digital version of like Cluedo or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, or something very similar to kind of where you go around.
Essentially, you're exploring a house, basically.
Yeah.
So there's an element of exploration to it. Obviously, knowing the way these things go, it's less about... I know it says it's a turn-based RPG game, but I imagine it's going to be less about combat and more about solving a mystery, I imagine. It's interesting because it looks as if it's going to be on the current gen for around $20, I think it says here. So you can keep an eye out for it on PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch as well. I can very much see me getting this for Switch. Yeah, so here is what we know so far. This is actually coming from BoardGameQuest.com. I'll read out what they know so far. The year is 1926, and a professor of astronomy is found dead in her mansion, the apparent victim of a heinous murder. Players must pick from 12 of the most iconic protagonists from the Arkham Horror universe, each with a unique skill set, and assemble a team of investigators to uncover the secrets behind this mysterious death. As investigators face off against Lovecraftian horrors, they will descend deeper into the depths of madness, affecting their level of sanity and causing traumas that will impact the course of their investigation. Along with facing curious science, living nightmares, and a sinister cult, players will combat an array of enemies in turn-based combat, all while attempting to retain their sanity. Developed by Artifact Studios and featuring an original story, Arkham Horror, Mother's Embrace plunges players into the engrossing pulp world of 1920s America to combat unseen supernatural and psychological horrors, true to the Lovecraftian spirit. So, you can definitely see how this came from a Mansions of Madness style adaptation, basically. So you can 100% see that this was originally a Mansions of Madness game that they've just then developed into their own thing. It's kind of a little disappointing to hear that it will be quite combat focused. Do you know what I would love to see out of this, though?
Yeah.
Have any of you ever played Eternal Darkness before?
No. Not that I'm aware of. It rings a bell, though. I don't know why.
I recognise the name.
Was a game.
Played it.
It was a game. It was a GameCube game developed by Silicon Knights.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And the thing is, they made a very Lovecraftian game where you had your sanity affected all the time.
Yeah.
But the really cool thing in the game was, as your character was getting affected with sanity loss and things like that, it would directly impact the player as well. So there were times where it would say, your memory card has been removed. It has corrupted your data and stuff like that. Or there would be times when you're just walking down a hall and your character model's head would just fall off. So it would directly screw with the player as well. The more mad that your character was getting. I would love to see something like that implemented into this. Because it's something I haven't really seen anywhere else before. There are a lot of things which don't really work anymore. If you were ever to go off and find videos of it, like you would have an old volume. There was one sanity effect was like the volume would appear at the bottom of the screen and would start going down, and the sound would start shrinking. So it would seem like someone had just picked up your controller and just turned down the sound. Like I say, because it's a really ancient kind of scheme, it wouldn't really work these days. But yeah, I would like to see something like that. Like, as your players are getting more and more insane, it's not just a number on the screen, it's actually something that would affect the players as well. If they could bring that in, that would be mint. Yeah. I mean, does this interest any of you guys at all?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm gonna buy it because I've been really looking for like a decent Cthulhu, Lovecraftian game, and like I say, the Sinking City I had high hopes for, but I don't think the reviews were that good. So for me, yeah, probably. The only thing is, I've come across, like I said, I was trying to tell you guys earlier, but I can't remember what it's called. I've come across one that I think that's in development that looks like it's going to be ridiculous. I just don't know what the game's called. I'm going to try and find it so we can have a look at it another time. But yeah, I got high hopes for that because obviously Lovecraftian stuff's kind of coming back quite huge again, isn't it? I think, especially with like kind of the TV show and like just all the kind of I feel like it's very much kind of not in again, but
I think it's gone beyond. It's gone beyond board gaming. It's had a real heavy influence on a lot of board game titles for a long time now, and it's definitely impacting more. Do you know what? I think things like Rick and Morty even reference it from time to time.
So it's interesting as well because
it's just kind of
so it's funny you say that actually, Rick and Morty. Last night I decided to watch like a couple of the Halloween Horror from Simpsons. Yeah, Simpsons.
Yeah.
I think Treehouse of Horror. I can't remember what it was called then. Treehouse of Horror. The opener was basically Homer versus Cthulhu in an eating contest. So
nice.
It is getting very widely seen. I guess it's not such a, I wouldn't say it's a small gathering or cult thing, but like it's getting out there a lot more than it used to, which I think is kind of interesting. But
it's ironically almost less of a cult thing now, and it's kind of infecting the mainstream to a point now.
Yeah, which is not necessarily a bad thing. There's some interesting concepts, but on like fear and kind of like madness and stuff like that. One of the ones similar to this that I've been watching a few people play, I don't know if you guys have seen it, is I can never know how to say this. Is it Phasmophobia?
I've
I know
that
the one.
Have you played it in like? Does it work the way it seems to work or not?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it does. It's good fun. It's just not finished.
Oh, okay. So it's still access.
Yeah.
So the ones
I'd also say that it's.
I think
this
is like.
I wouldn't play it a lot. I'd play it like, it's Halloween, let's play this tonight. Not, let's play this most nights and have another go.
So the thing
I
where...
kind of feel like that makes a lot of sense, because I definitely find 100% that you're finding that there are a lot of games these days that are becoming really, really popular whilst they're kind of still in post-production, really.
Yeah.
And people are bored with the game before it's actually fully realised.
So the thing I was sort of going to get to with it was the fact, because you started talking about Eternal Darkness, it's got interesting features in it in this, like as in voice commands, where you actually talk and say the name of the ghost in this game.
John Andrews, where are you?
And then it reacts to that, and I think I've been watching quite
and
a lot.
And it goes... Yeah, and you go, it's time to leave.
I really like there's a kind of an interaction that's not found in a lot of games. Where you are genuinely going, can you turn on the light? Can you show me a sign? And then it will do the thing. I know it's basic 'cause it's literally the same
That's really cool.
setup of always.
It's
saying
very
it.
cool, but honestly, I spent most of the time giving the ghost disses, and it's like because a lot of the ghosts, when you say their name, just get cross.
Yeah.
That you're saying their name. So you go in, and you go,
Yeah.
John Andrews. I bet you left a big stinky poo in your toilet. I'm going to go have a look, and I'm going to out you as a big stinky pooper. And he's like, I'll kill you. And you're like, okay, maybe I won't.
Okay, we've gotten off the topic of board games here a little bit. Shall we move on from the news?
Yes.
Okay. So, as has been the case for a long, long time now, we do not have an audience question this week. If you would like to send us one, please do email us at mailbag@everybodydice.com, and we will answer them on this podcast. Not this podcast, but a future podcast.
We'll go back in time and answer it on this podcast.
Yeah, sure.
I promise you.
So, with that, let's enter our big topic. Okay, so our big topic this time around has been voted on by our patrons, as it usually is. So if you go to patreon.com/everybodydice, we basically run a poll just before we record each of these podcasts, and we ask, basically out of 3 topics, which one they'd like us to talk about the most. The options they had this week were, if you were told you could only play one genre of game for the rest of your life, which would you choose? That didn't win. Also not winning, have you ever embarrassed yourself playing a board game? And our winner this week is, what is the prettiest board game? But you already knew that because you've seen it in the title. So, prettiest board game. I feel like there's
loads, isn't there?
I've got a lot in my head in terms of pretty board games. I mean, anything that is drawn by Ian O'Toole is going to be on that list. So, Escape Plan.
Escape Plan was going to be one that I brought up.
Yeah,
I'm
Black
happy it wasn't
Angel
just
is
me.
really good. Ride the Rails as well. Actually was a really pretty looking board game. I mean, we've already talked about him on this one. We're going to mention Carl Ferrin again, I imagine, with Root and 4.
Yeah.
There's another one as well which looked really good that he drew, and I can't remember the name of it.
I really like the guerrilla-esque style of cards on Dead Commands Cabal.
Yep.
Oh,
yep,
you mean
that
the
one
brown
was definitely-
hairy boy?
What?
It's a Mighty Boosh reference, don't worry.
Okay. I was like, what? What were you on about? Are you talking about the grey faced leg man? Is that what you're on about? That
Oh,
episode?
you know, the grey leg face.
Yeah,
man.
okay.
that
Yeah.
one.
I was like, I know it sounds familiar, but I can't think why.
I mean, if we're just talking about genuinely the looks and stuff like that, I think Wingspan does have to be mentioned.
Oh, that's interesting.
Begrudgingly.
Can I say something that's gonna maybe raise a few eyebrows
Okay.
with you two specifically?
Munchkin?
Any board? No, I don't like the art style. No, I don't know. Any board game or like sort of tabletop game that has been released with a board, released by Games Workshop. The artwork
Okay.
that comes with it and a lot of the pieces and stuff, I would argue, are very pretty. So, for example, Blackstone Fortress, a lot of the art for it is very nice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, in a very kind of like dark fantasy kind of
That
very
is
gloomy
kind of my jam.
way.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I would say I quite like on that subject. I actually quite like not Champions. What was it called? Warhammer Champions. The artwork was quite
Yeah.
nice on that.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
So there's several genres for this, because I was about to say there's miniatures games, and then there's actual board games, and then there's card games. Because I would say stuff like Star Wars Destiny
Yeah.
has some really cool artwork pieces all over it.
Yeah.
Anything by
Yeah.
Fantasy Flight tends to.
That's
Yeah.
true.
I think one of the ones I want to bring up as well is Myth,
Yeah.
however you say it, you know, the one with the little pop-up board and the
Yeah,
little
yeah.
golden cheese.
Little mice dudes. That was cool.
I always come back to that one.
I have a good one.
Yeah?
What was the really broken game with when you go into that bloke's dream and you get killed by people by a flamethrower?
Good shout. Comanauts, yeah. That is a good shout. I think that one is really easy to forget because the game was so like
it was ruthless.
It was.
I wouldn't. I said broken because I knew you guys would get that, but I wouldn't say it was broken. I just think it's hard.
I want to play it again. I wanted to play it again. I think it was so brutal that last bit.
Oh, for sure. Like I'm game for playing that a second
because
time.
We've only played
such a long list.
One story, not even that. So there's plenty to it.
We got through the Western one, and then did we get through the Western one? We got onto the second bit.
We
of the
died.
Western
We
one.
got to the second bit.
On the cart. It got burnt alive, didn't it? Or we burnt ourselves or something.
Yeah.
It was like almost immediately, wasn't it, that we were hit by a flamethrower? And I think I died immediately before I even got a turn.
Didn't you res back into the flames or something like that?
You did res immediately into the flamethrower flames. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think Ree was playing with us at the time, and I think she got very close to death after one attack as well. And I think it wasn't long before, it was in maybe 3 turns, I think, on that second map, and all of us were dead, I think. It wasn't long,
it was.
if I remember correctly.
Catacombs, in general.
There's
a lot of aesthetics about that I really enjoy. The board, like you say, it's quite nice. I love the card work, the stickers that you put down on the wood. It's quite a pretty game. It's childlike, but quite a pretty game.
Okay. Crokinole. If you get a really nice, my Crokinole table, I think is really nice, and it's just kind of that glossy surface of it.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I just really love that. I know there's no artwork to it, but man, the craftsmanship on a proper Crokinole table.
There's nothing better than watching the glistening of chalk. Oh no, what was it called? Gliss powder. Yeah,
Gliss.
Nothing better than watching the gliss powder in the morning. Perfectly waxed within an inch of its life. I mean, I can see there's. The thing is though, pretty that. That's quite a weird one because, you say that, but actually just the geometry of some games as well. So I really like the look of Team 3. I know it sounds really stupid.
I really thought you were going to say Mega City Oceania.
Well, yeah,
I was going to say Mega City Oceania, but not when you play with Steve.
Yeah, I mean, in general, that's quite a subjective thing, isn't it? Because it's that's like creating your own art, which. I like the lines, the patterns, colours. Yeah, sure, they can look like absolute trash, but at the same time, there can be some really cool-looking, complex shapes. So I find that's kind of interesting. Or
okay,
what's it called? The one we always play, and it's the Builders one. Jesus Christ. Oh man, Men at Work. Men at Work. It's just stupid because of all the different colours and people, but it looks great.
So at this point. Let's make things tough now. We've mentioned a whole bunch of really, really good-looking games, but the answer of the question for this one is, what is the prettiest board game?
What overall, or just our top one each, and then trying to
the prettiest? Oh, do you know what? Another one that I didn't mention that I really like the minimalist approach to it and stuff is I really like the look of Fog of Love.
Yeah, I can see that.
I really like the way that that's presented, but yeah, we have to pick one.
I think I'm going to go Comanauts. I think it's so in depth, it's so varied. It covers most of the bases.
For me, I think I might have to go for Escape Plan. I find the artwork is really, really striking.
That's my second place for sure.
Yeah, and I think it is what I'd have to go for. I was definitely going for something Ian O'Toole, but Escape Plan I think is the prettiest. I don't think it's the best game that's had Ian O'Toole attached to it, but it's certainly the prettiest, I think.
Do you know what? I think I've just been thinking about it. I really like the Crew.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't the Crew the one with all the nice little artwork and kind of the cards and stuff? Or am I thinking about something else we played?
The Crew is the one where you play
as a crew.
a coloured cards to complete tasks around the
Might
board
not be the one I'm thinking of.
in
Let me have a
certain
look.
orders. I was going to say I like.
No,
the look of
no,
the
it's not the
I
Crew.
don't think I'd have that. As
What's
the
the
prettiest.
What's the one where it's like with criminals, and you've got we played it with Leon, and you take jobs.
Escape Plan.
No. You take jobs. It's a card
Oh.
game. What's that
Oh,
called?
yes,
Do you know?
I remember the one. It's in the Resistance.
Yeah, and it's got
universe.
really
Yeah.
nice artwork to it. Like the characters are all like really like the mastermind and like the wheelman and stuff like that. And
It is
grifters.
grifters.
Yeah, I like grifters. I think for me that's
That is.
got some really
That's a good one.
nice.
Really good game
Yeah.
as well. I think it's really underrated as a game in the Resistance universe as well. Like everyone goes for the Resistance and Coup.
Yeah.
But grifters is really good.
I
as
think
well.
I really like the
Really, really good.
That reminds me of like it's very striking. It's very kind of like pulpy in a way, and I like the kind of graphics of that. I think that's for me. That's quite a nice looking game.
It is. It's a really nice looking game. Definitely agree with you there. But yeah, so do we argue about which one of us three is right?
I think we've all played those games and can appreciate every single one of those, can't we?
I think all of us can appreciate every one of those games. It may seem like a bit of a cop out, but
Do you know what, if you came here for decisiveness and like us making the correct decision, then you've not listened to the other podcasts, and you should go back and listen to those.
I
first.
tell you what, though, I think I would probably, if I had to put my, I like grifters, but I would say Escape Plan was pretty strong. So
yeah.
yeah, I would.
Well-
but for me personally, grifters. But I feel like I would also vote. Comanauts was good, but we didn't play enough of it to see the rest of it. Which is
I think we've all made pretty decent choices there, though.
I flicked through Comanauts. I'm acutely aware of how pretty it is.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, like, Plaid Hat games in general are really, really nice looking games. Like the Ashes Rise of the Phoenix Born as well. That I don't want to call it a living card game, but it's certainly not a collectible card game. It's more of a self-contained thing. That is incredibly pretty as well. I mean, they do generally tend to do really nice. Like Forgotten Waters as well looks really, really nice as well. So they generally have a lot of attention to detail when it comes to like their artworks and stuff. They're very much the universe builders of the board game world. So yeah. So with that, thank you very much for joining us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, you can find us on social medias at Everybody Dice on Twitter and at Everybody Dice Show on Instagram. If you really enjoyed this and want to throw a buck or two our way, we have a Patreon. You can find it at patreon.com/everybodydice, where for as little as $1 a month, you can gain access to our monthly audio newsletter. We do have a Discord channel. And you also get to vote on what we talk about on this podcast, as well as what games we review. Apart from that, our Facebook page, please do go and check out facebook.com/everybodydice at the moment, because like I say, at the moment we are basically running games in profile, which we're going to do for the next couple of months or so in the lead up to Christmas. We're just going to throw various games out on there. I think what have we done so far? We've profiled a couple of the Gateway games. So we've done Ticket to Ride, we've done Carcassonne, we've done...
you
what
did
else have we
Horrified,
done?
but that was a Halloween theme one.
We did Horrified and Mysterium for Halloween. We did King of Tokyo as well. I'm also planning to finish off the Gateway games by throwing Catan in the mix as well in the future. Flamme Rouge I want to do. The other day I photographed Flick 'em Up with the intention
Yes.
of thring that up on there. So yeah, we've got plans for that. We've still got plenty of games to go through on there. Please do check out the Facebook page for that. Like I say, we've got the Twitch channel as well, twitch.tv/everybodydice, but we're not quite sure what we're going to do with it just yet. But hey, what's the harm in signing up to a couple more things? There should be a few videos over here on the screen right now. Please do give one of those a click and check out more of our stuff. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this one. Thank you very much for joining us.
Can I just change my statement?
Okay.
I just
Sure.
realised that
Bear in mind that these images are only staying on there for a couple more seconds.
I really like villagers. I just realised. Bye.
Okay, Darren likes villagers. Thank you very much for joining us. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.